Welcome to the Infinite Mythos.
The first labor of Hercules, slaying the Nemean Lion. The cowardly king sent Hercules to be torn apart by the scourge of the gods, hoping for his death. But when Eurystheus beheld the slain lion, he turned pale. The inhuman strength of the surviving hero proved more terrifying to him than the beast itself. This was how legends would remember it. But legends forget the darkness before the dawn. Hercules stood at the edge of the dead lands, breathing air that tasted of ash and old death. The valley of Nemea stretched before him, once fertile, once green, now a graveyard of bleached bones and abandoned farms. Nothing grew here anymore. Nothing dared. The lion had seen to that. Behind him, the road back to Mycenae wound through mountains that suddenly seemed welcoming compared to what lay ahead. King Eurystheus had smiled when he gave the order. A thin, wet smile that Hercules had wanted to crush along with the skull beneath it. But he could not. The oracle had spoken. 12 labors to cleanse his soul of the madness Hera had planted in his mind. 12 impossible tasks to earn forgiveness for crimes he did not remember committing. The first labor, kill the Nemean lion. Hercules had laughed when he heard it. He had killed men. He had killed beasts. A lion was just meat and fur, nothing more. But now, walking through villages where the doors hung open and the wells had gone dry, where the only sound was the wind whistling through empty windows, he understood why Eurystheus had smiled. This was no ordinary lion. This was a god's punishment made flesh, born of Typhon and Echidna, nursed on divine hatred. He found the cave at sunset. 2 entrances gaped in the mountainside like wounds in stone. Inside, darkness so complete it seemed solid. And somewhere in that darkness, breathing. Hercules made his choice. He gathered boulders, massive stones that would have taken 10 men to lift, and sealed one entrance completely. Then he walked into the remaining mouth of the cave, knowing that he had just locked himself inside with the monster. There would be no retreat now. No escape. Either he would walk out with the lion's corpse, or his bones would join the others scattered across the valley floor. The last light disappeared behind him. In the absolute blackness, he heard something move. Something large. And then, far deeper in the cave than he had expected, 2 eyes opened, golden, burning, reflecting light that did not exist. The lion had been waiting for him. The first arrow flew true. Hercules heard it strike, heard the sharp crack of impact, and then heard something impossible. A clatter. Metal on stone. The arrow had bounced off the lion's hide like a pebble thrown at a bronze shield. He knocked another arrow. Fired. The same sound. The same failure. The golden eyes began to move closer. Hercules emptied his quiver. 12 arrows, each one capable of punching through oak at 100 paces. 12 arrows that fell harmlessly to the cave floor, defeated by fur that should not exist. His hands trembled as he reached for his club, seasoned olive wood, heavy enough to shatter skulls. This would work. It had to work. The lion charged. Hercules swung with all his strength, catching the beast across the jaw. The impact sent shockwaves up his arms, nearly tearing the weapon from his grip. For one glorious moment, the lion stumbled. Its legs buckled. It shook its massive head, dazed. Then it rose. The club had done nothing. The wood was cracked now, splintered from the force of a blow that would have killed any natural creature. And the lion was no longer curious. The lion was angry. It came at him like a landslide, 600 pounds of muscle and divine malice. Hercules dove aside, feeling claws rake across his back, opening lines of fire across his flesh. He rolled, came up swinging, and the lion batted the club aside like a toy. Its paw caught his chest, and suddenly Hercules was airborne, slamming into the cave wall hard enough to crack stone. He tasted blood. His ribs screamed. In the darkness, he heard the lion padding closer, taking its time now, savoring the moment. It had done this before. It knew how this ended. Hercules tried to stand and fell. His left arm hung wrong, dislocated, maybe broken. His arrows were useless. His club was destroyed. He was wounded and trapped in a sealed cave with a monster that could not be harmed by mortal weapons. The lion's breath washed over him, hot and rank with the smell of death. How many had died exactly like this, Hercules wondered. How many had crawled into this darkness thinking themselves heroes, only to meet their end? He thought of his past. The weight of what Hera's madness had made him do. The terrible guilt he carried like chains. He had been trying to atone. And now he would die here, in darkness, and the gods would laugh, and Eurystheus would smile that wet smile, and nothing would ever be made right. The lion opened its jaws. In the moment before death, Hercules saw truth. The arrows had bounced. The club had shattered. But he had felt the impact, felt the lion's skull give slightly under the blow, felt the beast stagger. The hide was impervious. The creature beneath it was not. Human weapons were useless. But Hercules was not human. He was the son of Zeus. Divine blood ran through his veins, the same blood that had allowed him to strangle serpents in his cradle, to bend iron with his bare hands, to perform feats that made mortal men weep with envy and fear. He had spent his whole life trying to be human, trying to earn his place among mortals through deeds and honor. But humans could not kill this lion. Perhaps a god could. He dropped what remained of his club. The wood clattered against stone, and the lion paused, confused by this strange surrender. Hercules rose to his feet, ignoring the agony in his arm, the wounds on his back. He spread his hands wide. "Come then," he said. "Let us see whose father was stronger, yours or mine." The lion lunged. Hercules did not dodge. He caught the beast's jaws as they closed around his shoulder, one hand on the upper jaw, one on the lower. The teeth sank into his flesh, but they did not find bone. His divine blood, awakened now, flooding his muscles with strength that had no earthly measure, held the jaws open. The lion thrashed, confused. This had never happened before. Its prey had never fought back. Not like this. Hercules began to pull. The lion's eyes went wide. It tried to retreat, but Hercules wrapped his legs around its body, clinging to it like a lover, like a parasite, like death itself. His arms burned. His shoulders screamed. But inch by inch, he forced the jaws apart, wider than they were meant to go, wider than bone and sinew could sustain. For a moment, one brilliant, terrible moment, he thought he had won. Then the lion twisted, and Hercules lost his grip. He hit the ground hard, and before he could rise, the lion was on top of him. Not biting now, it had learned that lesson. Instead, it pressed down with its full weight, crushing him against the stone floor. Hercules felt his ribs crack, felt the air forced from his lungs. He could not breathe. He could not move. The lion's massive paw pinned his head, claws pressing against his skull, and he understood that the beast was not just killing him. It was savoring him. Punishing him for the audacity of fighting back. His vision began to fade. In the darkness of the cave, even darker shadows crept in from the edges. This was how he would die. Not in glory. Not in redemption. But suffocated beneath a monster, his labor failed, his soul unavenged. The lion purred. In the black, with his lungs burning and his heart stuttering, Hercules remembered why he fought. Not for Eurystheus. Not for the gods who had cursed him. Not even for forgiveness. He fought because there were still monsters in the world, and someone had to stand against them. He fought because giving up meant letting the darkness win. He would not let it win. His hands found the lion's throat. The beast barely noticed at first. It was so certain of its victory, so accustomed to prey that simply stopped struggling and died. But Hercules did not stop. His fingers dug into the thick fur, found a windpipe beneath, and squeezed. The lion tried to pull away. Hercules held on. His arms were beyond pain now, beyond exhaustion. He was operating on something deeper than muscle, something older than bone. The divine fire that Zeus had planted in his mother's womb roared through him, burning away weakness, burning away doubt. The lion thrashed. Its claws raked his body, opening wounds that would have killed any mortal man. Hercules did not let go. The lion slammed him against the walls, the floor, trying to shake free this thing that would not die, would not stop, would not surrender. Hercules squeezed harder. Minutes passed. Or hours. In the darkness, time meant nothing. There was only the pulse of the lion's throat beneath his hands, growing weaker, weaker, until finally, it stopped. The beast collapsed. Hercules lay beneath it for a long time, breathing in gasps, feeling exhaustion wash over him. He could not move. He was not sure he would ever move again. But he was alive. And the monster was dead. When he finally dragged himself from the cave, he carried the lion's corpse across his shoulders. He did not know how. His body was destroyed, held together only by will and divine spite. But he walked. Through the dead valley. Through the abandoned villages. All the way back to Mycenae. The gates were open. Word had spread. People lined the streets, silent, staring at this blood-soaked apparition carrying the impossible trophy. Hercules walked past them without seeing. He had eyes only for the palace, for the throne room, for the coward who had sent him to die. Eurystheus sat rigid on his throne, surrounded by guards who gripped their spears with white knuckles. Hercules dropped the lion's body at the king's feet. The corpse hit the marble with a wet, heavy sound. "Your labor," Hercules said. "Completed." He had expected triumph. Satisfaction. Perhaps even joy. But looking at Eurystheus, looking at the raw terror in the king's eyes, the way his hands shook, the way he pressed himself back into his throne as if trying to disappear into the stone, Hercules felt nothing. No. Not nothing. He felt something cold settling in his chest. Understanding. "You," Eurystheus whispered. "You are not, you cannot. I am exactly what the gods made me." The king's face contorted. Fear curdled into something uglier, hatred, desperate and impotent. "Get out," he hissed. "Get out of my city. You are forbidden from entering Mycenae's walls. You are a monster. Worse than what you killed." Hercules looked at the lion's corpse. At the magnificent hide that had turned away every weapon. He drew his knife, useless against the living beast, but the beast was no longer living, and began to cut. The skin came away slowly, reluctantly, still divine even in death. "What are you doing?" Eurystheus demanded. "Guards! Stop him!" No guard moved. They had seen Hercules walk out of hell. They would not be the ones to stand in his way. Hercules finished his work. He lifted the golden hide, still wet, and draped it across his shoulders. It settled against him like it had been made for him. Like it had been waiting. "You wanted me dead," he said to the trembling king. "You sent me to the lion because you thought it would kill me. But the lion is dead now. And I am wearing its skin. Think about that, Eurystheus. Think about it every night when you try to sleep. Think about what comes next, what new impossible task you will give me, and remember, whatever you send me to kill, I will return wearing its strength." He turned and walked out of the throne room, out of the palace, out of the city. Behind him, he heard Eurystheus screaming for his guards to seal the gates, as if wood and bronze could keep out what Hercules had become. The sun was setting over Mycenae. Hercules walked into the dying light, the lion's skin golden on his shoulders, his mind finally quiet. 11 labors remained. 11 monsters waiting to die. He found that he was looking forward to them. The second labor of Hercules, slaying the Lernaean Hydra. The club whistled through fetid air, shattering spines, yet the monster rejoiced, for every wound only made it stronger, transforming the battle into an endless dance of death. Hercules felt his arms burn as he swung again, watching another serpentine head collapse into the marsh with a wet crunch. For a heartbeat, triumph surged through him. Then came the sound, a tearing, bubbling hiss like fat dripping into flame. From the stump of the severed neck, flesh twisted and split. 2 new heads emerged, slick with dark ichor, their yellow eyes already fixed upon him with ancient hunger. He had come to Lerna seeking redemption. King Eurystheus, that coward who ruled from behind walls of bronze, had sent him here after the lion, sent him to die, though he called it labor. The Hydra was no ordinary beast. Born of Typhon and Echidna, it carried the hatred of titans in its blood and the patience of serpents in its many minds. 9 heads, they said. 1 immortal. Hercules had laughed at the stories in Tiryns. He was not laughing now. The creature coiled in the shallow waters of the swamp, its massive body blocking out the dying sun. Each head swayed independently, watching him from different angles, cutting off every retreat. The stench of its breath, foul and burning, made his eyes water. He had killed things before. Lions, boars, bandits who thought strength was enough. But this was different. This was not a fight. This was punishment wearing the mask of a trial. Another head lunged. Hercules dodged, feeling wind against his cheek, and brought his club down on its skull. The bone caved. The body jerked. And again, that horrible sound of regeneration, of flesh mocking death itself. 3 more heads now. 12 in total, where 9 had been. His nephew Iolaus stood at the edge of the marsh, holding their horses, his face pale as bone. "Uncle," the boy shouted. "Fall back. We must think." But Hercules could not fall back. To retreat was to fail. To fail was to remain stained, forever the man consumed by divine madness, who the gods would never forgive. Every beast he killed was a step toward absolution. Every monster was a prayer written in blood. He made his choice. He charged. The Hydra met him with all its heads at once, and Hercules understood too late that he had not been fighting a battle. He had been feeding one. The hours blurred into a nightmare of scales and teeth and the endless wet sound of rebirth. Hercules lost count of how many heads he had severed. 20. 30. It did not matter. For every one that fell, 2 rose in its place. His club, seasoned olive wood that had served him against the lion, was now slick with gore that steamed in the twilight air. His arms felt like they belonged to someone else, heavy, slow, disobedient. The Hydra had learned his patterns. It no longer attacked blindly. Instead, its heads worked in concert, feinting from the left while the true strike came from behind. One set of jaws clamped onto his shoulder, and Hercules screamed, not from the pain of the bite, but from the venom that poured into the wound like liquid fire. He tore free, feeling flesh rip, and staggered backward. His vision swam. The poison was already working through him, turning his blood to acid. Any mortal man would have died in minutes. But Hercules was not mortal. The divine blood of Zeus warred with the toxin, keeping him alive but unable to purge the agony. He would survive. He would suffer. Then came the crab. It erupted from the mud beneath his feet, massive, its shell the color of dried blood, sent by Hera herself to ensure her stepson's death. Its pincers seized his ankle and squeezed until bone cracked. Hercules roared and brought his club down, shattering the creature in a single blow, but the damage was done. He could barely stand now, one leg dragging, one shoulder torn, and before him the Hydra had grown into a forest of heads, each one hungry, each one patient. "You cannot win," something whispered in his mind. He did not know if it was the monster's voice or his own despair. "Every strike makes it stronger." Every effort feeds its immortality. You are not killing it. You are completing it. Hercules fell to one knee in the marsh water. Around him, the Hydra's heads descended slowly, savoring this moment. They had all the time in the world. He did not. He remembered the weight of his past, the madness that Hera had planted in his skull, the terrible things he had done without knowing. He had sworn to atone. And now he knelt before a beast that could not be killed, and he understood that perhaps this was not a trial at all. Perhaps Eurystheus and Hera knew exactly what they were doing. Perhaps the true punishment was hope, the hope that he could earn forgiveness through impossible labors, hope that would be crushed again and again until nothing remained. A head struck, and Hercules barely raised his arm in time. Fangs sank into his forearm, and more venom poured into him. The world turned white with pain. From somewhere far away, he heard Iolaus screaming his name. Fire. The word cut through the fog of agony like a blade. Hercules blinked, forcing his eyes to focus. At the edge of the marsh, Iolaus stood holding a burning branch torn from a nearby pine. The boy's hands were blistered, his face wild with desperate revelation. The wounds. Iolaus shouted. I watched them heal, they close immediately when you cut. But fire, uncle, fire stops flesh from knitting. We burn the stumps before they can grow. Something shifted in Hercules' chest. Hope, that cruel thing he had thought destroyed, flickered back to life. He watched as Iolaus sprinted forward, torch held high, and understood what his nephew was proposing. Not just a fight. A surgery. Precise, brutal, final. Come then, Hercules growled, rising to his feet despite the broken bones and the poison singing in his veins. We finish this together. They worked as one. Hercules swung his club, caving in a skull, and before the stump could even begin to writhe, Iolaus was there, pressing fire to the wound. The flesh sizzled and blackened. The regeneration stopped. The head did not return. For the first time, the Hydra screamed. It was a sound unlike anything Hercules had heard, not the hiss of a serpent but something almost human, almost like grief. The remaining heads thrashed wildly, no longer coordinated, driven by something that might have been fear. 2 more heads fell. 3. Each one cauterized before it could multiply. Hope surged. Hercules felt strength return to his limbs, borrowed perhaps from the gods or simply from the knowledge that victory was possible. They were winning. They were actually winning. Then the Hydra did something unexpected. It stopped fighting. Its remaining heads drew back, coiling together, and for a moment they seemed to merge into a single massive form. At the center of that knot of scales sat the 9th head, the immortal one, larger than the others, its eyes burning with gold light that was not reflected from any fire. It regarded Hercules with something that looked terribly like pity. Foolish son of Zeus, the immortal head spoke, its voice resonating through the marsh like thunder. You think you are killing me. But I am not a beast to be slain. I am a lesson. Before Hercules could respond, the Hydra's body convulsed. Its remaining mortal heads exploded outward in all directions, not attacking but fleeing, diving into the marsh, burrowing into the mud, scattering like seeds thrown by a farmer's hand. Every piece of me that touches water will grow, the immortal head said. Every scale that escapes will birth a new Hydra in a different swamp, a different shore. You have not killed me, Hercules. You have planted me across the world. In 100 years, 1,000 Hydras will rise because of what you did here today. The realization struck him like a blow. The fire had worked. But it had worked too well. In their desperation to stop the regeneration, they had driven the monster to scatter itself. They had won the battle and lost the war. Hercules looked at the swamp around him, at the countless trails disappearing into the water, and felt his hope turn to ash in his mouth. No. The word came from deep within him, from a place below thought, below despair. Hercules stood in the poisoned water of Lerna, surrounded by the evidence of his failure, and refused. He had spent so long trying to earn forgiveness, trying to prove himself worthy of absolution through suffering and strength. But watching the Hydra scatter, watching his victory transform into catastrophe, he understood something he had missed all along. He was not being punished for his crimes. He was being punished for his hope. For believing that the gods who had cursed him would ever let him win cleanly. The rules had always been rigged. The labors were designed to be impossible. And every time he found a way to succeed, the terms would change, the goalposts would move, and he would be told his triumph did not count. But Hercules was done playing by their rules. Iolaus, he said quietly, his voice steady. The parts that escaped, they are flesh. They need time to grow. Hours, perhaps days, before they can become new monsters. But they everywhere, Iolaus said, his face ashen. We see not possibly, we do not need to catch them all. Hercules looked at the immortal head, still watching him with those golden eyes. We need to catch the one that matters. He moved faster than the Hydra expected. His club came down not on the immortal head but on the rocks beneath it, shattering stone, creating an avalanche that pinned the creature's neck to the ground. Before it could react, Hercules dropped his weapon and seized the head with his bare hands. I cannot kill you, he said, staring into those ancient eyes. But I can bury you so deep that you will never see sunlight again. I can trap you beneath a boulder that would crush a mountain. And I can ensure that whatever grows from your scattered pieces will be small, weak, and alone, while you, the heart of it all, rot in darkness forever. The immortal head hissed, struggling, but Hercules' grip was iron. He dragged the beast to the largest boulder he could find, a massive stone that had stood at the edge of the marsh since the Titans walked. With strength born of rage and revelation, he lifted it. Eurystheus will say this labor does not count, the head whispered. He will say you had help. That you cheated. Hercules smiled. It was not a kind smile. Let him. I no longer do these labors for his approval or for the gods' forgiveness. I do them because monsters deserve to be fought, and I am the only one willing to fight them. He dropped the boulder. The immortal head vanished into the earth, its scream cut short, imprisoned but not dead, exactly as Hercules intended. Then he turned to the marsh, to the carcass of the Hydra's body still leaking dark venom into the water. The poison. The venom that had nearly killed him, that had burned through his divine blood like acid. He walked to the corpse and drew his arrows. One by one, he dipped them in the creature's gall, coating the bronze tips in death. When Eurystheus next sent him against a monster, when Hera next tried to destroy him, these arrows would carry the Hydra's legacy, not as scattered beasts terrorizing the world, but as weapons in Hercules' hands. He looked at Iolaus, at the young man who had saved him with a simple truth about fire and flesh. Come, Hercules said. We return to Tiryns. Let the coward king say what he will. We know what we accomplished here. They walked from the marsh as the sun rose, leaving behind the stench of death and the silence of a monster that would whisper to itself in darkness until the end of time. And if new hydras did rise from the scattered pieces, if the monster's final curse bore fruit, well, Hercules would be waiting. He was done seeking forgiveness. Now he sought only the next fight. The club hung heavy on his back, and the poisoned arrows clinked softly in his quiver. Behind him, somewhere beneath a boulder that would never move, an immortal head screamed without sound, dreaming of vengeance it would never achieve. Hercules did not look back. The third labor of Hercules, capturing the Ceryneian Hind, a year of wandering, ended in violence. Having wounded the sacred beast, the hero froze in terror before the punishing hand of the goddess. But that moment, that terrible, frozen instant when Hercules felt the arrow leave his bow, came only after 400 days of pursuit across lands that mortal men were never meant to see. The Ceryneian Hind had led him through mountain passes choked with snow, across rivers that ran with ice, into forests so ancient that the trees remembered the birth of the gods. He had chased her through seasons, watching spring become summer, become autumn, become winter, and then spring again, always running, always failing. The hind was faster than the wind, tireless as the stars, and she knew every secret path in every hidden corner of the world. King Eurystheus had laughed when he gave this labor. Not the nervous laugh of a man sending his rival to die, but the genuine amusement of a coward who had found the perfect trap. Kill the hind, and Artemis would strike down her slayer with silver arrows. Capture her alive, and face a creature that could outrun thought itself. Either way, Hercules would fail. After 6 months, Hercules had stopped seeing the labor as a task and started seeing it as a curse. After 8 months, he had stopped seeing it as a curse and started seeing it as madness. After a year, standing in the frozen wastes of Hyperborea where the sun never set and the snow never melted, he had stopped seeing it as anything at all. There was only the chase. The endless, exhausting, soul-crushing chase. The hind stood at the edge of a frozen lake, drinking from a crack in the ice. Her coat gleamed like burnished bronze, her antlers on a doe, a gift from Artemis herself, branched like golden lightning against the pale sky. She was beautiful. She was sacred. And she was, for the first time in a year, standing still. Hercules' hand found his bow without thought. His fingers knocked an arrow, one of the poisoned shafts from the Hydra, before his mind could object. He aimed for the leg. Just the leg. Enough to slow her. Enough to end this nightmare. He released. The arrow flew true. The hind screamed, a sound like bells being shattered, and collapsed onto the ice. Golden blood spread beneath her, steaming against the cold. Hercules ran to her, guilt already clawing at his throat. What had he done? She was sacred. She belonged to Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, whose arrows never missed and whose wrath never faded. He had wounded a divine creature to satisfy a mortal king. He gathered the trembling hind in his arms, feeling her heartbeat flutter against his chest. She did not struggle. She only looked at him with eyes the color of autumn leaves, and in those eyes he saw something worse than fear. Disappointment. The air grew cold. Colder than the Hyperborean wind, colder than the ice beneath his feet. A silver light bloomed at the edge of the frozen lake, and Hercules knew without looking that he was no longer alone. Artemis had come. The goddess was beautiful in the way that a drawn bow is beautiful, all tension and potential violence. Her hair was the color of moonlight, her eyes like polished silver coins. She wore the skin of a great wolf across her shoulders, and in her hand she carried a bow that seemed to drink the light around it. "Son of Zeus," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it echoed across the frozen lake like thunder. "You have wounded what is mine." Hercules could not move. Could not speak. The hind still trembled in his arms, her blood dripping between his fingers, and all he could think was that this was how he would die. Not fighting monsters. Not defending the innocent. But hunted down like prey for the sin of harming something pure. "I had no choice," he managed. The word sounded hollow even to him. No choice. Artemis stepped closer, and with each step the temperature dropped further. Frost crept across Hercules' armor, across his skin, across the tears that he did not realize were freezing on his cheeks. "You chose to pursue her. You chose to draw your bow. You chose to aim. You chose to release. Every moment of this past year has been a choice, son of Zeus. Do not insult me by pretending otherwise." Eurystheus commanded. Eurystheus is a frightened child playing with powers he does not understand. Artemis raised her bow. The arrow that appeared on the string was silver, glowing with cold light. "You are the son of the king of gods. You have killed monsters that would make kings weep. And yet you tell me that you had no choice but to obey a mortal coward?" Hercules looked down at the hind. Her breathing was growing shallower. The poison from the Hydra's blood was spreading through her divine flesh, and even now, even as she was dying, she did not hate him. He could see it in her eyes. She was not afraid of death. She was sad for him. Sad for what he had become. A slave. A weapon. A creature of violence who had forgotten how to be anything else. Please, he said. The word tasted strange on his tongue. When was the last time he had begged for anything? Please. Not for me. For her. The wound is mine to bear. The punishment is mine to suffer. But she is innocent. Artemis paused. Something flickered in her silver eyes, surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. You would accept death to save her? Yes. You would give up your labors, your redemption, your chance to cleanse the stain upon your soul. Hercules thought of his past. The madness that Hera had placed in his mind. The terrible things he had done. The years of service to Eurystheus, each labor a step toward forgiveness, each victory a prayer for absolution. He thought of the hind dying in his arms, and none of it mattered. Yes, he said. Artemis lowered her bow. But she did not smile. You think sacrifice will save you, son of Zeus? You think death is the answer? She shook her head. Death is easy. Living with what you have done, that is hard. And that is what you fear, is not it? Not my arrow. Not punishment. You fear looking at this creature and knowing that you hurt something sacred because it was easier than defying a mortal king. The word struck harder than any weapon. Hercules felt something crack inside him, not bone, not flesh, but something deeper. The armor of pride he had worn for so long, the certainty that his strength made him right. I do not know what else to do, he whispered. I have been running for so long. Fighting for so long. I do not know how to stop. Then learn, Artemis said. And raised her bow again. The arrow flew before Hercules could react, but it did not strike him. It buried itself in the ice at his feet, and from the point of impact, silver light spread outward, wrapping around the hind like a cocoon. Hercules watched, breathless, as the wound in the creature's south leg began to close. The poison receded, pushed back by divine power. The golden blood stopped flowing. The hind's breathing steadied, deepened, and her eyes, those autumn-colored eyes, fluttered closed in peaceful sleep. She will live, Artemis said. The poison was strong, but my will is stronger. By dawn, she will be whole again. Relief flooded through Hercules so powerfully that his knees buckled. He would have fallen if the hind's weight had not kept him anchored. Thank you, he breathed. Thank you, goddess. I will release her. I will tell Eurystheus that the labor is impossible. I will, you will do no such thing. Hercules looked up, confused. Artemis stood over him now, her face unreadable, her silver eyes boring into his soul. You wounded my sacred creature to complete your labor, she said. You debased yourself, violated divine law, and nearly killed an innocent being. And now you think you can simply walk away? Return to your master with empty hands and a clear conscience. But you said, I said she will live. I did not say you are forgiven. The cold returned. Hercules felt it seeping into his bones, freezing his blood, turning his hope to ice. You have spent a year chasing something you could not catch, Artemis continued. A year running from the truth that your strength alone cannot solve every problem. And when you finally caught her, you did so through violence and betrayal. Is that the hero you wish to be? The man who wounds what he cannot control? No, Hercules said. But even as he spoke, he knew it was a lie. He had always solved his problems with force. The lion. The hydra. Every monster, every challenge, every obstacle, he had met them with muscle and rage. When had he ever tried another way? You have one chance, Artemis said. Complete your labor, but not through violence. Bring the hind to Mycenae without harming her further. If you can do this, if you can prove that you are more than a weapon, then perhaps there is hope for you yet. But if you fail, She did not need to finish the sentence. The silver bow in her hand said everything. Hercules looked at the sleeping hind. She was healed now, or healing. In a few hours, she would wake. And when she woke, she would run, and he would be right back where he started, chasing something he could never catch. Unless he found another way. How? He asked. She is faster than me. Stronger than me, in her own way. If I cannot use force, how am I supposed to bring her to Mycenae? Artemis smiled. It was not a kind smile. That, she said, is for you to discover. You have until dawn. If the hind runs and you cannot catch her peacefully, you will never catch her at all. And I will know that the son of Zeus is nothing more than a brute in hero's clothing. She vanished, leaving Hercules alone on the frozen lake with a sleeping hind and a problem he had no idea how to solve. The hours passed slowly in the land of endless sun. Hercules sat beside the hind, watching her sleep, thinking thoughts he had never allowed himself to think before. All his life, he had been taught that strength was the answer. His divine blood made him powerful, and power was meant to be used. But looking at the hind, at her delicate legs, her golden antlers, her peaceful face, he realized that power meant nothing if it only brought destruction. He had spent a year chasing her. A year of his life, devoted to a single task. And in all that time, he had never stopped to wonder why. Why did Eurystheus want the hind? What would he do with her once she was delivered? The coward king had no use for sacred creatures. He only wanted to see Hercules fail, or to provoke the gods into destroying him. But Artemis had offered another path. Complete the labor without violence. Bring the hind to Mycenae. And then? Then what? The hind stirred. Her eyes opened, those autumn leaf eyes, and for a long moment she and Hercules simply looked at each other. She did not run. She did not struggle. She only watched him, waiting. I am sorry, Hercules said. The words came easier now, as if saying them once had broken something loose inside him. I hurt you because I was afraid. Afraid of failing. Afraid of being seen as weak. But that fear made me do something unforgivable. The hind tilted her head, listening. I cannot undo what I did. But I can choose differently now. Artemis said I must bring you to Mycenae without harm. I do not know if you understand me. I do not know if you can. But I am asking you, not commanding, not chasing, not threatening. I am asking. Will you come with me? Silence. The endless Hyperborean wind whispered across the ice. The sun hung low on the horizon, painting the snow in shades of gold and rose. The hind stood. She walked to Hercules on legs that showed no trace of her wound. And then, slowly, carefully, she lowered her head and pressed her muzzle against his hand. Hercules felt tears freeze on his cheeks again, but this time they were not tears of fear. They traveled together to Mycenae. It took weeks, crossing mountains and rivers and forests, but the hind did not run. She walked beside Hercules like a companion, like a friend, and when they finally reached the gates of the city, the guards fell back in shock at the sight, the greatest hero in Greece, walking calmly beside the most sacred creature in the world. Eurystheus was waiting in the throne room, his face twisted with anticipation. He had expected Hercules to fail. He had hoped for it, planned for it, dreamed of the moment when the son of Zeus would finally fall. The hind, Hercules said, gesturing to the creature beside him. As you commanded. Eurystheus rose from his throne, greed replacing surprise in his eyes. Excellent. Guards, take the beast to the, no. The word stopped everyone in the room. Eurystheus blinked. What did you say? I said no. Hercules stepped between the king and the hind. I have completed your labor. The hind stands in your throne room, brought from the ends of the earth. But she is not yours to keep. She belongs to Artemis. And I will not allow her to be caged by a coward. You dare, I dare. Hercules smiled, and it was the smile of a man who had finally understood something important. You gave me a task. Capture the Ceryneian Hind. I have done so. You did not say I had to leave her with you. And I will not. He turned to the hind, still standing calmly beside him, and knelt before her. Go, he said. Return to your forests, your mountains, your goddess. You are free. The hind looked at him one last time with those autumn eyes. Then she turned and walked out of the throne room, past the stunned guards, through the gates of Mycenae, and into the wild lands beyond. Eurystheus was screaming something, threats, probably, or commands that no one would follow. Hercules did not listen. He watched the hind disappear into the distance, watched her golden form shimmer and fade like a dream at dawn. And in that moment, standing in the throne room of a king who feared him, Hercules understood what Artemis had been trying to teach him. True strength was not in the arm that drew the bow. It was in the heart that chose not to. He walked out of the palace, leaving Eurystheus to his impotent rage. Behind him, the king's shouts faded to nothing. Ahead, the road stretched toward new labors, new challenges, new chances to prove that he was more than a weapon. The year of wandering was over. But the journey, the real journey, had only just begun. And somewhere in the wild places of the world, a golden hind ran free beneath an endless sky, carrying with her the memory of a hero who had learned, at last, to be gentle.